fresh morning to come out and to listen this morning. First of all, just to explain, I suppose, the title, 1 Degree of Change. When Tracy and I met after the conference in London, I was just asking her about what's going on in Morgan McKinley at the moment, and she mentioned Project 212, or P212, and I said, what's that about? And she said, did you know, which I didn't, did you know, she said, that it takes 211 degrees to power a steam engine? I said, no, I didn't. But she says, did you know that it takes 1 extra degree to actually power it, or sorry, to actually move it? So P212 is effectively their strategy on not just powering the steam engine, but moving it as well. And that's all it takes, is 1 extra degree of change. So that's why I came up with this particular title this morning. And you know, if I was to give you something to take away from today, what would that one potential actually be in order to move or to power the steam engine? So that's where it comes from. It's really, I didn't come up with it, Morgan McKinley did, so that's where that came from. And really what I want to give you today is something tangible to take away that you can implement right from the start. So, well, you've already heard basically all about me at the moment. As I say, well, as Tracy said, I'm the Positive Economist and Managing Director of Hayes College Limited. I was asked it already this morning over coffee, and that is, why did I write the Savvy Woman's Guide as opposed to the Savvy Person's, or the Savvy Man and Woman's Guide? And I'll just briefly tell you why, because every man and their mother is literally asking me that, and that is because it's not that I didn't write it for men, but instead women do treat finances differently. They, or we, are underrepresented in terms of pensions, underrepresented in terms of self-employment. Sorry gentlemen, but we're actually better at managing money, it's just that we don't do it because we're afraid of it. And also we are proven to be better in the stock market because women can apply discipline, and yet again there's a huge dearth of women in that area. I used to work in a stock market training company, and on our courses generally there was 90% men, 10% women. So that's why I did it. I just felt women, I don't know, I could identify with them more, so I did. So it's not that I blocked you out. You're all very welcome to buy it, it's fine. But as I say, that's really the reason that I did it. So anyway, that's enough about me. Really, I'm here to talk about you. And the 5 areas are there's 10 actions, and they're split among 5 areas. One is strategy and management, one is finance, one is sales, one is marketing, and one is productivity. And I suppose the first thing that I would invite you all to think about this morning, if you haven't already, and that is, you know, this nebulous question about what makes you different. And I struggled with that for a while because I was thinking, well, what makes me different to anybody else? And I actually noticed on the way in, on my way in at Morgan McKinley, I just noticed this up here on the glass walls as we get people. That is looking at me everywhere. I look, and I think that's a striking way in which Morgan McKinley have differentiated themselves. The Positive Economist, it's not that I go around and make up names for myself, far from it. I was on Gareth O'Callaghan's show one morning, and he said, Susan, you always seem very happy to be in, even though it's so early on a Friday morning. I think we call you the Positive Economist. And I said, that's hilarious. And anyway, I went home and I told my now fiance, and I said, Gareth O'Callaghan called me a Positive Economist this morning, and he said, sure, why don't you register the domain name? I said, sure, may as well. And then after that, I used to put it at the end of all my press releases going into the media. And often I used to get a call from Newstalk or RT saying, look, the bond yield is up, unemployment is up, and basically we're all down, so can you come in and say something that's positive? So I said, sure, I go in and I'll try anyway. And that's where that came from, and that's how it stuck. And actually that is how, in so many small ways, the second book came to be. So rather than trying to actually me sit down one day and say, well, what makes me different? I asked other people. And basically my 3, we'll say, unique selling points, or my 3 values are, first of all, I practice what I preach. Every single thing, everything that I'm going to tell you this morning, I have implemented and successfully in my own business. If I haven't done it, it won't be up here, and it won't be in the book, and it won't be anywhere else. Secondly, and this is where the Positive Economist really comes in, I will not just talk about the good stuff. I could stand here for 2 hours and talk about the Irish economy, and I'd love to, right? But you didn't know I'd come here for that. And I would talk an awful lot about the negative points. However, where I do believe that you can make a difference is really focusing on what you can do. Really, I mean, when you're dealing with macro problems like, you know, banking recapitalizations, I know which drives us all mad, and and I know which building I'm in and what other company is here, so I better get my voice down. But there's an awful lot of macro issues that we simply can't address, and yet how we can immunise ourselves from the doom and gloom, as we call call it, is to basically focus really and truly on what you can do. And the last thing is that everything I want to talk about is totally practical and implementable, because otherwise it's just, well, not really all that useful for the day-to-day actions within your business. So they're what makes me different, and certainly if you haven't thought about it already, I would really invite you to do the same, because it does make a difference if you can say this. And don't look internally, look externally for that. That's where I found all of this. Okay, so just before I move on, when we talk about 1 degree of change, I think it's important to ascertain where exactly you want to take your business in 2013. And it's not, I don't have the answer for that, and I don't think anybody else in this room apart from you and your own colleagues are going to be able to answer that. But in order to change, or in order to take one degree of change, in what direction? And I think it's really important, rather than just sit here this morning and listen to, I wonder what Susan's going to say now about how I can make my business better. Well, what I would like you to think about is, well, what would making it better mean? And make it very, very where you can tick a box about. So would it be something like increasing turnover, increasing or decreasing staff count? Would it be something like increasing efficiency, increasing productivity? What does it actually mean? And rather than we're hoping to do better this year, that doesn't cut it, because how do you know if you've done better? If you turn over €1 extra, does that count? So I often deal with this, I will say on a personal finance level as well. I often hear people saying, I'd love to have loads of money. Well, there are people out there this morning who can't afford to eat, so €10 would be great. So the thing is, what exactly would it mean? Because we can go through all the steps of getting there. That isn't the problem. But actually, where is there? And only you can define that, and nobody else can. So first of all, I think it's really, really important to do that. And again, this is the last time I mentioned the book, but financial freedom, again, I left that title as is, because that is really up for discussion. What is it? Now, to me, financial freedom is when you can generate enough income to cover all your liabilities without ever having to rely on any income stream. Any one that involves me and my time. That is me, that's the way I define it. Somebody else might define it differently. But the thing is that there's no right answer. And there shouldn't be. Really, it should be up to you. And the same thing is for your company's goals. But by God, make them measurable. Otherwise you're destined to failure, because moving goalposts are very hard to score a goal. So, on that note, I am somebody where if there's no objective, I find it very hard to do it. I can't go for a walk. Like, you go for a walk and you come back again. So, there's nothing achieved in that. So I find it very hard to do anything where there isn't an objective. So I had to train my brain into sitting down and actually working out the strategy for the year and where I wanted to go. So I put a very big carrot in front of myself, and they are awards. So, for example, this is one that I applied for recently at Enterprise Ireland. The call has gone out again, just in case any of you are interested. The Competitive Start Fund. So you have to be, I think it's under 6 years in business, so for any of you that's relevant, there's plenty more, I'll put them up as well. So you have to be under 6 years in business, and you can apply for €50,000 in exchange for a percentage of your company. Now, I applied for it twice. Didn't get it twice. I got money previously than that in Enterprise Ireland. But what I did get was basically the total company plan, business plan for 2013. And actually, I forced myself to sit down and do it, because this was due on the 4th of December. The next one is out at the moment. I think it's due on the 23rd of January. And they go out, I think, around about once a month. So that's how I did it. Other ones might be the SFA, Small Business Awards. The David Manley Awards in the Dublin Chamber, they're out on Thursday, actually. Ulster Bank Achievers Awards, they're out. For those of you that may be playing on a bigger stage, Ernst & Young is a fantastic one, and I know quite a number of people. I'm on a board actually with one person who's on that, and particularly the alumni network in Ernst & Young is just unbelievable. So what I would say is that if you're finding it hard, and maybe many of you have this already done because of the time of the year that's in it, but if you don't, certainly put this carrot in front of you. Another one as well that an awful lot of companies, and I have no idea why they don't apply for this, is the Innovation Voucher Scheme. Now this can be used no matter how big or small you are, as long as you're private limited. And the Innovation Voucher Scheme is where you can apply for €5,000 of a voucher of which you can use an expertise in your company. So if it's obviously from a HR perspective, whether it's from an innovation perspective, whether it's from a technology perspective, a marketing perspective, you name it, you can apply, and then you get a €5,000 voucher. Now I'm saying this for two reasons. Remember, for anybody who gets a €5,000 voucher, they also have to spend it somewhere. And are any of you approaching people who have got innovation vouchers to offer your services in exchange for that €5,000 voucher? So again, I would put it around the other way. So I have ever got a LinkedIn message by that where somebody said, there is a new innovation voucher scheme out there for marketing and design. I am willing to provide the services if you want to get the government to pay for it. I thought, oh, that sounds good actually. So look at it from both sides. See who's actually receiving them, and also see if you can apply for them yourself. If you are, again, if you think €5,000 would go nowhere in your business on a particular problem, and I'll give you an example. I spoke with the Booksellers Association, and they have massive competition, obviously, with the e-reader, which is causing a lot of problems. But instead of 10 of you got together, you could apply collectively for €50,000 and put it into one particular plan. So that could be where you're taking on a much bigger problem. Now, and I do know that this is totally and utterly under-applied for in Enterprise Ireland, and they are innovation partnerships. Much bigger animal, completely. What they are is where, and I'm currently applying for them at the moment, where you can actually link up with the university, and Enterprise Ireland provide 80% of the cost, and you put in 20%. And if you saw the projects that some of our universities are producing, and all they will ever be is a project that gathers dust on the shelf because there's no one like you applying for the money in order to put them into commercial reality. And they're called innovation partnerships. To do a feasibility study, you can get up to €20,000, and that is 100% funded. And then after that, if I'm not mistaken, I think it goes up to €200,000, so the maximum you'd have to supply is 40. The minimum is whatever the minimum you decide. And it doesn't matter your level either. You can actually be pre-trading right up to whatever level any single one of you are in order to apply for them. And they're totally under-applied for. And Enterprise Ireland can't spend their money. And you might say, Enterprise Ireland can't spend their money. Honest to God, they can't spend their money. And you know what happens if the budget goes underspent. It disappears. So really it's up to you to take it off them because they can't do it on their own. Just before I leave this, if I was just to put it out there, how many financial supports do you think there are for businesses? I guess. 20? 460. And often people say, why didn't someone tell me? Well, it's all here. And it's actually the Enterprise Europe Network website will tell you. And that includes local, national, regional and European supports. There is one other one that I want to tell you about, and that is called Erasmus Entrepreneur. Again, nobody knows about this, and I have no idea why. Totally, again, under-applied for. This is where, some of you may have done Erasmus in college, which is where you go for a year of your college degree and you spend it somewhere else. But this is the same idea, only applying to entrepreneurs. The European Commission will fully fund somebody to work in another European country between 1 and 6 months. So if you're under 3 years in business, you could apply for this, okay? So where you could apply to go, and if you know somebody who's unemployed and struggling, this is for them. So where they could actually get fully funded by the European Commission to go and work in Luxembourg or Germany or Malta or any other European country. And basically the whole idea is that if you're under 3 years in business, you can go to someone who's over 3 years in business and learn the tricks of the trade. In some of your cases, you may be over 3 years in business and struggling with the amount of workload that you have. This is where you would get someone for effectively free, and then they will come from another European country and work in yours to learn again how to manage their own business. And this, by the way, is non-competitive. So it's not that you're going to be up against anyone, and there are people whose jobs it is to match these people up. So again, I don't know, again, this is totally and utterly under applied for. Dublin Chamber are planning yet another launch of this because it's just, people just don't know about it. So if you're struggling in terms of time and people, there's plenty of resources out there, really and truly. And as I say, 460 supports for businesses. The amount that's out there is massive, and it's generally under applied for. And as a result, people who work in these areas aren't getting the budgets because people aren't applying for them. Another one, that just to move on from there and to look at sales, or more so productivity, I suppose. Would you all know who your best customer or customer group is? Yeah, most people would say that, okay. Well, for anybody that doesn't, certainly that's a no-brainer, first of all. You definitely should know that. Now, if I was to take the same question and say, do you apply a proportionate amount of time to those customers or customer groups relative to how much they actually deserve? Because this is the thing, is that we can often spend more time on the customers that ask for it. So if they send in an email, we reply. If they ring, we answer. We reply with a voicemail, etc. So often our time can be very haphazard. And unfortunately, this is where an awful lot of customers were lost in the boom, is because they kept coming anyway, and only the ones that shouted the loudest got answered first. So really, what I would suggest for 2013, possibly a New Year's resolution, and I know most people have forgotten about them by now, but it's never too late. What I would really suggest, and strongly, would be to move your time around in proportion to the customers that offer the money, effectively. Certainly to take your time, and I've only recently started taking a time budget. I love spreadsheets. I think spreadsheets are the best thing ever. But what I have started to do is say where I think I'm spending my time and where I am. And by God, that's an awful slap across the face. Because a lot of people have said to me, since I wrote the book, they said to me, I'd never have time for that. And I never thought I would have either until I actually sat down and did it. But the thing is that an awful lot of our time slips away quite simply because of the immediate demands of it from time to time. So that's the first thing that I would say is certainly find out who your best customers are and then move your time around accordingly. And I think that you will see a massive change in effectiveness, well I certainly have anyway, as a result of that. This is a very, very simple one. It's a really simple one, and it's one that, you know, which can simply happen out of apathy, but as soon as the job is done, just get the invoice out. If I'm doing a training session for an organisation, I do not leave the building until I have the invoice sent to them. Just don't. Because it's so easy to go out to the car, you have a voicemail to answer, you're thinking about another call, a proposal has to go in, you have to prepare for a presentation, etc, 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 and then you're a week later. And then of course they have their 3 or 4 weeks, or however many weeks until they pay, and then, whereas the thing is, you're actually stymieing your own cash flow by not getting it out. That's all. Very, very simple thing. Just send it out. Now. As soon as the job is done, just get it out there. Now, understanding margin, I think, is very important. I'll take a break from business finance here for a second and just talk about personal finance. People often ask me, you know, is personal finance all about cutting the fun out of your life and spending nothing? I think that's your destined way to get yourself both to A, a miserable life, and B, miserable finances. I was just speaking to somebody this morning and I heard that Visa Ireland, that they're up 17%, their performance up 17% in the year before, versus an EU average of 5. 5, like, sorry, you can tell where I'm from, like, I'm really excited. So the thing is that, like, we really are, we're a nation that really is hell-bent on the credit card. Now, I'm also, to be honest, not surprised at that, because a startling statistic is that our household debt in Ireland is 209% of our disposable income, which means we could spend our disposable income each and every month, twice over, on paying off our debt. And that's where an awful lot of our problems come from, and as I say, I'm veering back into the economy now, I'm going to veer back out again. But what I would really say is that, you know, if you're going to bring in new money, whether it's a company or from an individual perspective, it will make a far bigger difference if you close up the invisible holes in your pockets. And there are some. And one of them is our direct debits, and particularly the more you bury your head in the sand, the more you will not look at your credit card statements or particularly your direct debits or your bank statements, because you just want to leave it alone, just don't want to deal with it now. And that's one very big invisible hole. And another one, and apologies to any company that I'm speaking about here, but another one is the cost of financial services. Generally, they come in kind of with the service and they're built into what the product is, and because money is changing hands, they get lost in the way as well. So they're often two holes in your finances, personal finances. From a business finance perspective, there's loads of ways we can look at filling up holes, and many of them probably have been filled by now. But what I would say is the impact of bringing in more money is far greater when we can reduce the cost. Far, far, far greater. Maybe an obvious point to a lot of you, but still no harm in making it. And what I would now like to ask you is, many of you were nodding your head at me, and I'm happy to see that, when I asked you who are your best customers. If I was to ask you who are your most profitable customers or customers groups, could you answer me? Because that's the real one. And now I'm very impressed to see that there was 3 heads nodding at me for that one, which is significantly less than the previous question. But that is the real answer. And the thing is that, are there any customers, and by the way, particularly small businesses are really, they're the worst criminals at doing this, is not costing their own time. Now bigger companies are better at that because obviously you have to pay the people who are delivering the service. But particularly, you know, expensive businesses where revenue marginally increases, cost absolutely balloons, and basically profit disappears. Now, there was one day I sat down to do a spreadsheet. My now fiance was off. We were up in Ballyliffin, of all places, in Donegal. The rain was pelting down. I was left in a hotel room with nothing to do when I watched USA's Got Talent. And so anyway, I said, sure, what better thing could you do than take out a spreadsheet? And I did, anyway, for the crack, lad, you know. So anyway, here I was, and I was settling down, and I had an awful discovery that my second biggest customer was actually producing a loss. And I thought this was awful. I said, this machine must be wrong, surely. And of course it wasn't. And what was actually happening was, I was delivering stock market training on a mentoring basis. And my second biggest customer was bringing a huge amount of customers to me, and obviously generating a lot of revenue as a result. But what I wasn't doing was factoring in my own time, and particularly what I wasn't doing was factoring in the opportunity cost of my own time. So when I was going to Roscommon, or I was spending an hour in traffic in Dublin, or I was going here or going there, what I was missing out on, obviously, was the time that I could have been spending generating more revenue as a result. But because the revenue was so big, should I just watch this is grand and just keep going? But because I made that discovery, and again, it may sound like an obvious one now, it does to me now, but it wasn't at the time because the money kept coming in, and this was boom times anyway. So actually what I decided, I said, right, I have to either A, get rid of the business, or B, change it. So then what I started doing was, I looked into ways of doing this differently. And now what I do is all my mentoring, where I take control of the other person's screen, so my voice travels and my mouse travels, and effectively that's all they wanted anyway. They didn't want to see me coming in the door and having to clean the house because I was coming, and getting Caddo biscuits because they knew that was my favourite. So instead, what I did was that I changed it to where I was actually delivering the training online, so the meeting and my time started the minute they clicked on and finished the minute they clicked off. And that was it then, all the other time was my own. But again, had I not made that discovery, I simply wouldn't have known. So what I would certainly, and this is one of the biggest things you can do, is look at the profit within your revenue. And certainly, when you look at the profit within your revenue, then say, now how do I focus my marketing efforts in particular? So, particularly with expensive business, I would ask you the question is, do you have any expensive or loss-making business? If you do, either change it or give it to your greatest competitor, one or the other. Secondly, is to understand high margin, time intensive business. So particularly these are consultative businesses or service intensive, time intensive businesses as well. Now, training would be one of those for me. So that would be obviously where your revenue and your costs move together and your profit stays the same. The only thing about this is it's great, but you need to continuously reinvest the time over and over and over again in either keeping or getting new customers. So in that case, is there any way in which you can productize the service? And that for me, by adding on the book to my offering, is a way that I can do that. So now if I go out and I deliver a training program for X number of euro, and then you have the book sales on top of that, it costs absolutely no extra effort on my time or on my money in order to generate a higher amount of revenue and hence a higher amount of profit. So is there any way in which you can productize your service? And then the last one, of course, this is the really one, this is the biggest one, and this is scalable business. And this is where your revenue grows massively in comparison to a diminishing amount of cost per unit. And then of course your profit first of all increases and then moves up. Now what I would say is, in this case, can you grow that scalable business? But first of all, could you answer me for each and every one of your product offerings, product or service offerings, could you tell me which category they go in? Every one of them. Because if you don't, well then you may be missing out on some very obvious ways to increase or take that one extra degree of change. So that's what I would say is, first of all, understand the margin of each and every product offering. Each and every one. And then say, okay, where is the marketing efforts? Because obviously marketing efforts take time and they take money. Where is the best return on investment of those efforts? And that would be the way that I would start. So the next one then in terms of productivity, the 1st of January is a great day. You know, it's a great day. We're all going to stop smoking, we're going to lose weight, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And then the 2nd of January, well sure, you know yourself, like, you're back to work, and sure, we'll start next Monday, and by next Monday Coronation Street's on anyway. So the thing is, the 1st of January, as I say, it's particularly a time when we have our real New Year's resolutions. 2013, like, God, it's really going to be so different, and all the things we're going to do. And as I say, it gets clouded by all the things I've just stripped away here. What I do is I put these things into my diary at the very same importance as I would put the meeting here this morning. Like, I was out here for 7:15, and I was here, and I knew I was going to be here, and I know what time I'm going to leave at. And the thing is that, let's say an email comes in, and there's 101 things that I need to do, but I'm here this morning, and there's nothing going to change that. And yet, why is it that I would let an email push around my strategy for the year? Because we do. That is the thing, is that we may put these things don't make it to our diary because they don't first of all have a deadline. Like, I mean, who exactly puts down change? I'm going to factor in that I'm going to change today. Well, no, you're probably not, because you don't have it in the diary. Whereas instead you're going to have, I am going to go to Morgan McKinley next Tuesday morning at 7:30. That'll be there, and you'll be here. So that is what I do. And also, another thing which has really impacted on my productivity is I've actually put time in my diary for unexpected surprises. And we all know we get them from time to time. And they're the things that can really cause stress, like really bad stress. So if we're actually factoring in time for unexpected surprises, that can really make a difference to an awful lot of things. First of all, dealing with them, and second of all, your reaction to them. And thirdly, your relationships with people in which cause this stress as well. So I've done this, I've created a day a week when I can, and I really do try to do a day, but if I don't, I'll certainly put in a couple of hours for each of these things a week, and it has certainly made a huge difference to me. I now want to just talk about sales triggers, okay? And these are things, there's 4 ways to increase sales. I really only time to go into one this morning, but the one we normally prefer to use the most expensive way possible, and that is bringing in new customers. Whereas instead, I often wonder about how good we are at going back and finding existing business and finding more within it all the time. So I want to give you 5 triggers in order to do this. And on this particular dial, the one over here towards the very left is the one at which you'd say, if you hadn't spoken for a long time, and then we progressively moves closer. You'll see what I mean when I put them up. So first of all, is a very simple one, like, I haven't heard from you in a while and I thought I'd give you a call. Now that's a really obvious one, and yet there is a huge amount of my suppliers that have never said that to me at all, even though if I haven't bought from them in ages and ages and ages. And particularly as well, often is the case that they don't know that I've stopped buying from them because they've stopped looking at who's actually buying, they've stopped looking at the profit within the revenue, and they've stopped looking at their customers or customer groups. That's the first one. As I say, it's the most obvious one. Here is another one. We really appreciate your business and would like to take you out to lunch. Now, a really, again, very simple one. And I'm not talking about these as in you're basically going and saying, hi, I'd like to take you out for lunch and really seeing if you have more money to give me. I mean actually take them out for lunch quite simply because you really appreciate their business. Here is one that I use all the time myself, and I always, by the way, I didn't give anyone anything for Christmas. I gave no corporate gifts whatsoever for Christmas. I give them outside of that, because everyone's giving them for Christmas. You might even just get lost. I actually give every single customer, irrespective of how often they buy off me, I give every single customer a token of my appreciation every time I get paid. Every time. Irrespective if they buy from me 12 times a year, they will get 12 tokens of my appreciation. But I will not give anything at Christmas, it gets lost. And as my hamper supplier said to me, he said, I went into one day, I was putting in this big order at Christmas, he says, God, I'm flat out with this, sure, everyone does the same thing. And I said, I was thinking of getting a bottle of whiskey for all my suppliers, and he says, I'll tell you this much now, Susan, for nothing. He said, a bottle of whiskey at Christmas and a bottle of whiskey on Patrick's Day, there's a hell of a difference between the two. I said, oh yeah, makes sense. And he said, an Easter egg at Easter and a box of chocolates at Christmas, he said, nobody does the first one and everyone does the second. So now I give nothing at Christmas, and I do give when it actually makes a difference. As I say, when I get paid. And they kind of know what's coming now, so they're paying me even faster. And I just think that it's important. As I say, I'm really saying this because the thing is that, you know, it's 4 times easier, and this is statistically proven, 4 times easier to sell to a customer who's already bought from you. 4 times easier, because they've already established the trust if you've done a good job, etc., etc. So there's I make a policy of going back over and over again. And if you were to look at my revenue, my breakdown, get into the spreadsheet, and when I look at my repeat business year on year, it's extremely strong. And it's only because of these couple of techniques. Another one is we have a new product or service that might interest you. This has been one where I have particularly cold meetings where we have developed our product range or our service range, and where we simply say, where I've gone to people and say, you know, as it happens, I'm in Cork next weekend, and I'm happy to stay until Monday. Could I just call into you as we have a new product or service that might interest you? Notice the you part, so I'm not saying we have a new product or service. I'm saying we have a new product or service that might interest you, and here's why. So can I just call in while I'm down? And again, at this stage, I'm not saying, hi, I'm Susan Hayes from Hayes Cullen Limited. I won't be here. I'm saying, hi Joe, hi, how are you? Listen, I'm just down. So therefore, it becomes a very easy thing to do. And the last one, and this one I think is the most effective, is I was thinking about the work we did for you recently, and I think you could benefit from X. Could I send you something to think about? Now, I'll just give you a very brief example on how this worked for me in the past. I was doing a public sector tender, and we won it, and we did the job anyway. And basically what they were asking me was for me to go in and sit at the back of the room and watch someone deliver training from the top and to evaluate it accordingly. So I did. And then I was sitting at the back of the room and I was kind of shaking my head because I was thinking, the person at the top of the room is not the problem, just what they're saying. So I went back to them and I said, I was thinking about the work we could do for you, and I really think you could benefit from revising the content as well as evaluating the trainer. Could I send your proposal to think about? And then they said, yeah, sure, actually, yeah, please do that. And then they said, yeah, please go ahead. So the thing is that, you know, I'm sure none of you were sitting there this morning going, God, I wonder now, could we bring any business in for Susan? Just I really wish now we could bring in, is there any way at all we could get Susan to speak somewhere? God, I'd love to boost Susan's balance sheet. Wouldn't that be fantastic? No, you're not. You're thinking, I hope she finishes in time so I can go. That's effectively what you're thinking, among the other myriad of things that you're thinking as well. It's up to you to tell your customers how you can serve them better. It's not up to them to come back and tell you how much more money they want to spend on you. There's far too much to be thinking about than that. So if you come up with ways that you could serve them better, and remember, I'm saying serve them better, not sell them more. I'm saying serve them better. You never know. There could be, and particularly I have found that there's 10% extra of revenue out there that you simply haven't asked for. You simply haven't asked for because you haven't told them how well the money in their pocket would be worth if they spent it with you for doing X. But you have to give them X and obviously the value within it anyway. Because we all do this at an approach level. But what can you do after that? And I took this off Facebook one day, and that is that one lunch is worth a dozen emails, and I just thought it's a very, very true thing, very true indeed. Another one is joint venture marketing. Now this one I have to say that I have used most extensively in my business over the years. And this is basically where, I once learned a very, I suppose a very true statement about networking, that it's not about selling, but instead rather about finding buyers. And this, I have to say, is something that I look at all the time, is looking at how can I find not people to sell to, but instead people who have the connections and the network in order then to sell into them. So if I was to say to you this morning, well, do you know what, I deliver fantastic financial training. If your company want to find out about bonds, or you want to train people on derivatives, you come to me, we're the best in the business. Or imagine if Tracy stood up here and said, I met this lady the other day, and if you want to understand about bonds, she's great. Which would you believe, me or her? Her, of course. So the thing is that if you can actually connect up with people who are willing to endorse you and your product and have the network there, it's a far more effective sales tool than you going around knocking on every single door within that network code. So think about, is there any single joint venture marketing partner that you could link up with? And vice versa as well. In my case, how I've done it is I'm the finance trainer for Irish Times Training. So Irish Times Training deliver courses on a broad range of areas. One of them obviously is in understanding financial markets, understanding derivatives, etc, etc. So I go in and I deliver their courses for them, so they have an extra product to offer, and they find me the audience. Simple. So, and that has resulted in a huge, as I say, a huge amount of revenue over the years as well. So in that perspective, I would look at it, and I would particularly note down as in who would be a very, very natural fit with our organisation. How can we team up with them and offer mutual value? That's certainly a thing that's worked very well for me. Exporting. Well, obviously, connecting up with networks in LinkedIn is a very good idea, but particularly I want to tell you about another organisation that again nobody knows about. This is the way I have started. This is the way I started exporting to Malta, started exporting to the UK, particularly in Manchester and London. They're very strong there. But the Enterprise Europe Network. Anybody heard of them? Yeah. Oh. Wow, okay. So, the Enterprise Europe Network, again I'm going back to European funding. We don't take half enough money off Europe. I know we did a couple of years ago, but we don't take half enough off them. Or in terms of the Enterprise Europe Network, what they do is that they are, again, these people are fully paid by the Commission in order to help you export to other European countries. So, in my own case, I wanted to export to Malta, and I won't get into how that happened, but it did. And I got onto the Enterprise Europe Network. In our case, in Dublin, the office is in the Dublin Chamber. In Cork, it's in Cork Chamber. Sligo Chamber, etc. And they got in contact with Enterprise Europe Network in Malta, who then presented me with a list of people, a list of financial companies in Malta, and said, who do you want to meet? And I wrote down everyone. I said the stock exchange, the local newspaper, well, it was the only newspaper in Malta, and all of them, I noted down them all. They set up all the meetings, and off I went, and I went out for a week to Malta, and I came back with X amount of business. They did all the, it was basically like having an international strategist in the business for free. I did the same in London, I've done the same in the Netherlands, done the same in Belgium, done the same in Manchester, done the same everywhere. And these people's jobs is to get you the meetings that you work so hard to do. And that's because, again, you are taking out the unfamiliarity. It was Lizzie Ann Gauci in Finance Malta was saying, will you meet this person who's coming over from Ireland? It wasn't me calling them. And also, the Enterprise Europe Network put me in touch with Malta Enterprise, who of course was delighted that someone was coming in and willing to export in and out, and they provided me with a driver while I was there. So I have to say, I cannot speak highly enough of Enterprise Europe Network. They're a fantastic organisation. And again, their jobs will only be preserved if you ask for them. That's all. So that's certainly one area. Another one is the Irish diaspora, and I believe Kingsley Eakins here recently, and he is Mr. Diaspora, and he's fantastic at it. But I have to say they are the most amazing group of people, outside of us of course, Irish here. But the Irish diaspora are absolutely fantastic. And the conference that I actually met Tracy at was the IIBN, and I'm on the board of the Irish International Business Network. And that is that's a network whereby it's connecting the Irish business diaspora abroad. Now they have a branch in Dublin and in New York and in London, and that was obviously where the conference was held this year. But again, it can be very useful, and even to just join the LinkedIn group of that, it's a very dynamic place to be. Another one that I just want to tell you about is Connect Ireland. Have any of you heard Connect Ireland? No? Okay, some of you might have. Connect Ireland is a real way of which you can make a lot of money very quickly, actually. Connect Ireland is it's a philanthropic organisation set up by Terry Clune, who's also actually at that conference from taxback.com. And the whole idea is that Connect Ireland wants to bring Irish jobs into Ireland, which of course, don't we all? But what they are doing is they are asking you to be the eyes and the ears on the ground, and then as a result, when you go out and let's say you know somebody who's a receptionist at an office in Sydney, she hears that the company are expanding into Europe. You connect them up with Connect Ireland and they bring the jobs here. You make €1,500 per job created. So you don't have to know the CEO of Google. You just have to know someone working in a company abroad. And the average financial reward, this can be on a company basis or your own basis, and people are getting them, is €50,000. Because anyone who does open up an office in Europe, if it's 5 jobs, well then that's 7,500, but the average is 35. And I've actually seen the videos of people who are getting those amounts of money in. So it can be a very quick revenue stream, or at least a very easy one. All you need to do is send a couple of emails to the people that you know. And I've worked with Connect Ireland and I've seen the revenue come in. They're not a client, just in case you're wondering. I don't have a vested interest in any way. Simply, it's a philanthropic idea which I think can make a very real difference. So just in terms of exporting, many of you I know are involved in that sector, and I just wanted to point out a couple of other resources that are available to you. And again, as I say, practice what I preach. I've worked with all of these and I found them very, very beneficial from my side. PR. Well, I have to say, PR is obviously working well for me at the moment, given all of it that I'm doing, particularly around the book. But taking time to spend on your own PR is really, really key. First of all, what I would say is that many of you send out press releases that the media will never read. And that is because the maximum you should send to a radio station is 4 lines. Their attention span isn't any longer. So what I would have is simply, and never go to the presenter, they don't read these things, unless you want to be read out in a text or a tweet. If you want to get on a show, get to the producer. And any show you want to get on to, tell me, and I won't promise anything, but I will introduce you to the producer because I know them all at this stage. And really, what you need to do is go to the producer, but have something that's not, when we delivered X amount to our clients, they don't care. What they want to know is how can you actually get their audience to keep that radio station on, because their concentration span, Tom Dunn is constantly fighting with Ray Darcy, George Hook, Mary Wilson and Matt Cooper, they're all up against each other. So the thing is, how are you going to retain their audience? That's what you need to know. So in my case, I'm often on Ireland AM at the 7:10 slot to talk about the series Economics. I'm there tomorrow morning to talk about communication around finance. But in each and every case, what I'm looking at is how, not what I want to talk about, what their audience want to hear. And when you get in there, we'll come back. Because you think about how hard it is to fill 12 hours a day of radio time, and television time, and every other time. Particularly, another one, and I would say many of you would be really good at this, if you haven't been there already, are the business shows that deal with the newspapers. So Marion Finucane, Myra Hayes in Today FM is constantly looking for people on a Sunday morning to go on with Conal O'Moran to talk about the newspapers. Again, I mean, that show has 100,000 listeners. I write for the Sunday Independent every week. Now, I write the Recovery Index, I don't have a column, but I had a piece in it about, again, the book a week and a half ago, 918,000 readers. You know what I mean? I mean, they're really, if you're looking for really good leverage, well then get really good PR. Now, some of you have organisations large enough that you have PR people working them. Some of you are doing it yourselves. Some of you may say, geez, we should do more of that kind of stuff. Well, in any case, just 4 lines, that's all they will read. That is simply it. And really, the 3 themes I would have is, can you find some sort of a trend? Many of them now are looking for kind of indicative trends of either upturns or downturns. I know, for example, this morning, I'm going to be writing about the fact that we're spending so much on credit cards in the Recovery Index this week. And it gives me a good link between disposable income and credit card interest and that kind of thing. Now that to me is a trend about economic performance. Now, an economist might look at it like that way, but there's lots of ways that you could be telling me. I give you a very simple one. An off-licensee, or whatever you call it, person who owns an off-license, came to me one time and told me that normally when he sees an increase in sales of sparkling wine, it tends to a higher confidence level in the economy. And I said, I'm way. And he said, honestly, you should look at this. Now, okay, whether that has a grain of truth in it or not isn't really relevant, but Sean Moncrief would love to hear that and how he's seen that. So just think about your show, but get out to the producer. There is no point whatsoever in going to the presenter, and get on Twitter if you want to get on the media, and get simply following them. They'll follow you back, and that really is the quickest way in. And of course, when you're on them, make sure and put it on your Twitter, put it on your LinkedIn, put it on your Facebook, put it on irishbusinesswomen.com. Small Business Can is another one. Focus Me is another one. All of these types of organising, all of these online blogs and online publications, and particularly go to the magazines as well. Image Magazine, or constant, Woman's Way, I was on that as well during the week. That's if you want to get to women, that's the way to go. Tatler, they're all the ones that I've been contacting of late, but I'm sure you all have particularly niche ones as well. Business Plus is another one actually. They're often looking for things. So just go and talk to them. Again, remember, often people say to me, well, I wouldn't do anything about PR because I have nothing interesting to say. Well, that's rubbish anyway, because you all have something interesting to say in Ireland of the recession in your specific industry. But secondly, remember, you're helping them out. They have to fill pages, and not just with ads. So you are helping them out if you can give them something interesting, something relevant for their audience. Accountability. Now, particularly, like, you know, as I say, an awful lot of people fail at New Year's resolutions because there are these lofty ideals that come around year after year after year. What I would say to you is instead, what are you going to do between now, and today is the 15th. Oh, yeah, it's exactly halfway through the month. What are you going to do between now and Valentine's Day? Because actually that's obviously the 14th of February. What are you going to do? Not what are you going to do for the next year. But, now, I don't mean in a romantic sense, by the way. Sorry, I should clarify my point on that. That's up to you. But in terms of in your business or within your own company development, with your personal development, rather than say 2013 is going to be the year that I'm going to do X, what are you going to do between now and the next business briefing here at Martin McKinley? What are you going to do? And that is what I do. Now, I actually, and everyone laughs at me about this, but actually me and Ardal, my fiance, we have a board meeting every week. Now this is my board meeting in the future over here, right? This is where we'll have the office from Sydney ringing in, and from South Africa they'll have to get up early for me and all the rest of it. But at the moment, this is us. Two of us sitting down every Friday night over a Thai dinner, and we go through everything that's going on in the company. And basically what we do then is say, right, over the next week, here is what I have to do. Particularly, I'm mostly working the business at the moment. So here are all the things that I have to do. And if I go back to him on the second week and I say I haven't done, oh, well, anyway, we won't go there. So what I'm saying is that it's really, really important to have accountability. Really, really important to have accountability to somebody. Now, again, in some cases you've got middle managers, but often those people are far too busy to be meeting them on a weekly basis. Is there another system? For example, here's one that I've done, is we have a Google calendar, or maybe you have your own internal calendar, and everyone states on a Monday what they're going to have done by Friday. So it's all there, and they have literally in front of everyone, now I have 3 subcontractors, so between the 5 of us, everyone can see exactly what is on everyone's to-do list. Everyone can. So therefore, if one person is performing really strongly, it comes out and stands out in mine. If one person isn't, it also stands out in mine. And it basically is a way of staking your claim, saying, here's what I'm going to do, and I have to face the consequences if I don't. Because after all, if I put it up there and I said I was going to do it, I'm the one responsible. So accountability for me has worked personally within the business, and particularly as well within the people that I pay, of course, which is also very important. I just want to talk to you about a couple of other programs that are going on. Play to Ireland is one, some of you might have come across. Now, I was on Play to Dublin a couple of years ago, and what I used to do was I used to use the meeting as my accountability system. So I said, right, by the next time I go to Play to Dublin, here are all the things I'm going to have in place. Another one is Going for Growth. That is, again, sorry now to isolate a number of you, but Going for Growth is only for women in business who are over 2 years there and simply want to go for growth. So what you're being mentored by people like Amanda Pratt, who's at Avoca, and also people like Mary McKenna from Tour America. So really, really, you know, people in strong leadership positions. Then you also have the New Frontiers program. Now I did this, and this is again for people who really want to grow their business. You get $2,500 per month to be on that course. Okay, I'll just say that again. You get $2,500 per month to be on the course. You don't have to pay for it, to be on it. And that again is run by Enterprise Ireland. that I used to do 3 days a month between Dublin and Dundalk IT, and again it was we had an executive coach, a mentor. Again, any of you in those positions could also approach those organisations because they're constantly looking for those too. And also we had the 3 days a month, and we got a grant. Now it wasn't the $2.5 grand a month. I applied for it a bit too early, but anyway. So that's all of those systems can be very good as well. And of course, I also have somebody who makes sure that I take enough time off, because I'm not really good at that. I am self-confessed workaholic, and often I can be at the detriment of my own business if I don't take care of myself. So I also have somebody who actually makes sure that I take enough time off, and I have a personal trainer to make sure I keep healthy. So I actually outsource all responsibility to everyone else. So I'm really responsible to them, and they're responsible to me. It's great. And the last one, the last point that I would say is, you know, at the end of the day, you are the business or you are the job. Without you being at your prime, it will not work. It simply will not work, and it certainly won't work to the best of your ability. So what I would say to you at this time of the year is, first of all, make sure and take care of you, because if you go, an awful lot more can follow. But secondly, you know, I know we've been through an awful lot. We've been obviously through 5 years of a recession, and some of you are working truly global companies, whereby a recession here might not make as much difference, or maybe more. But the thing is that, you know, if you're still here, that shows an awful lot of resolve to keep going. So what I would say is, I suppose the best way to keep going really is just to take care of you and yourself and all that's around you. And as an economist, we're often brought into places to predict the future, but really, in my opinion, the best way to predict the future is to create it. Thank you very much.